The little girl's hand was cold as death when Jackson Warren touched it. 5 years old, frozen fingers wrapped around her baby sister. Their mother lay beneath them both, a shield against the cold that was taking them anyway. 3 lives fading in his hayloft. And Jack hadn't prayed in 7 years, until tonight. If this story touches your heart, hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment, where are you watching from tonight? This is how it began. The little girl's hand was cold as death when Jackson Warren touched it. 5 years old, maybe less. Her tiny fingers wrapped around her baby sister like she could protect her from the killing freeze. Their mother lay beneath them both, her body a shield against the cold that was taking them anyway. 3 lives fading in his hayloft on New Year's Eve, 1887. Jackson Warren hadn't prayed in 7 years, not since he'd buried his wife and daughter in the frozen ground. But kneeling in that hay, surrounded by the smell of horses in winter and desperation, he whispered the only word that mattered: please. The wind hit like a fist when Jack pushed open the barn door that night. His lantern swung wild, throwing shadows across the frozen walls. He'd made this walk every night for 7 years. Check the horses, secure the gates, walk back to an empty cabin. Same routine, same silence, same nothing. But tonight, something was wrong. The barn door had been open, not much, just a crack. But Jack had closed it himself at sunset. He remembered the weight of it, the way the latch clicked into place. His hand moved instinctively to the rifle he kept by the door, fingers curling around wood worn smooth by years of use. Easy now, he murmured to his mare Bella, who stamped and snorted in her stall. What's got you spooked? Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong, weak, barely there, like a kitten mewling in the cold. No, not a kitten, something else, something human, a child. Jack's heart slammed against his ribs. He raised the lantern higher, following the sound with the practiced silence of a man who'd tracked outlaws across 3 territories. The hayloft. Something was in the hayloft. He climbed the ladder fast, the old wood groaning under his boots. The cry came again, thin and desperate, cutting through the howl of wind outside. At the top, he swung the lantern wide. What he saw stopped his breath. A woman lay curled in the loose hay, her body wrapped around 2 children, like she could keep them warm through will alone. Young, maybe mid-20s, her face pale as snow in the lantern light. A little girl, 5 or 6 years old, clung to her mother's dress with one hand and held a smaller child against her chest with the other. The baby. No, not a baby. A toddler, maybe 2 or 3 years old. The tiny thing wasn't moving. They were freezing to death in his barn. Jesus, Jack whispered. He dropped to his knees beside them, his rough hands suddenly gentle. The woman's lips were blue. Her skin felt like winter itself when he touched her face, checking for signs of life. But her chest rose and fell, barely so faint he had to watch for 3 breaths to be sure. Still breathing. The older girl's eyes flew open. She screamed. No? The child scrambled backward, dragging her sister with her. Her voice cracked with terror. Don't touch us. Don't you touch my mama. Easy, easy. Jack held up his hands, showing them empty. The lantern sat between them now, casting long shadows across the hay. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm trying to help. That's what they all say. The girl's voice shook, but her eyes stayed sharp, watchful. That's what the man said before he left us. Before he took our wagon and left us to die. Jack's jaw tightened. Someone had abandoned them. Left a woman and 2 children in the middle of nowhere in the dead of winter. The temperature outside was 20 below. Maybe lower. They'd be dead by morning if he didn't act now. I'm not that man, he said, keeping his voice low and steady. My name's Jackson Warren. This is my land, my barn. I found you here, and I'm going to get you warm. But I need you to trust me, just for tonight. Can you do that? The girl stared at him. Even in the dim lantern light, he could see her eyes weighing him, measuring him. The eyes of a child who'd learned too young that the world was cruel, that men were dangerous, that trust could kill you. My name's Emma, she said finally. Her voice was small but firm. This is Lucy. She won't wake up. Jack looked at the toddler in Emma's arms. Lucy's face was too white, too still. But when he leaned closer, he could see her chest moving. Shallow breaths too fast. Fever breathing. She's breathing, Jack said quickly, checking her pulse at her tiny throat. But she's real cold. We got to get her inside. All of you. Mama won't wake up neither. She will, but not if we stay here. Jack shrugged out of his heavy coat, the cold immediately biting through his shirt. I'm going to wrap this around your mama and carry her. Can you hold Lucy real tight and follow me? Emma hesitated. Her small body trembled from cold or fear or both. Then she nodded once, sharp and decisive. Don't drop her, Emma said. Her voice carried a weight no 5-year-old should have to bear. Don't you dare drop my mama. I won't. Jack wrapped the coat around the unconscious woman, then lifted her. She weighed nothing, too thin her body burning through whatever reserves it had left trying to keep her children warm. He could feel her ribs through the fabric, count them like fence posts. How long had they been starving? He cradled her against his chest and started down the ladder, moving slowly, carefully. Every step measured, Emma followed her small hands gripping the rungs with determination. Lucy pressed against her shoulder, a ragdoll weight. The toddler's head lolled, but Emma held on like her life depended on it. Because it did. The walk to the cabin was the longest of Jack's life. The wind cut through his shirt, froze the sweat on his back. His arms burned from the woman's weight, but he didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. Behind him, he could hear Emma's footsteps crunching through snow, could hear her talking to Lucy in a fierce whisper. Stay awake, Lucy. Stay with me. We're almost there. The man said, We're almost there. Inside, the fire had burned to embers. Jack laid the woman on the rug near the hearth, then turned to build up the flames. His hands moved fast, practiced. Kindling first, then split logs. The fire caught, grew through heat and golden light across their pale faces. Bring Lucy here, Jack said. Close to the fire, but not too close. Emma obeyed, settling on the rug with her sister. Lucy's lips were blue. Her breathing came in shallow, rapid gasps. She'd been coughing for days, Emma had said during their careful descent from the loft. Mama tried to keep her warm, but it weren't enough. How long you been out there in the cold? 2 days, maybe 3? Emma's voice was small. I lost count. 2 days, maybe 3. In weather that killed cattle overnight. Temperatures that could freeze a man solid in his bedroll. You're a brave girl, Emma. Jack grabbed the blankets from his bed, thick wool that smelled of cedar and solitude. He wrapped them around the children layer after layer. Real brave. Emma didn't answer. She just held Lucy tighter and watched him with those sharp, suspicious eyes. Eyes that had seen too much. Eyes that trusted nothing. Jack turned his attention to their mother. Her breathing had steadied some, but she was still too cold. He'd seen hypothermia before during his years as a Texas Ranger. Knew the stages, the dangers. Too much heat too fast could be as deadly as the cold itself. He worked through the night, heating water, carefully applying warm cloths to their hands and feet. Slow, careful, checking pulses, monitoring breathing. Outside, the wind howled like something alive and hungry. Inside, the fire crackled and popped, holding back the darkness. Lucy woke first, crying weakly. The sound cut through the cabin like a knife. Emma tried to soothe her, but the toddler wanted something Emma couldn't give. She's hungry, Emma said, her voice small and ashamed. We ain't eaten since I don't remember. Jack's chest tightened. He went to the kitchen, heated milk in a pan, brought it back in a tin cup. The metal was warm in his hands, almost hot. Can she drink from a cup? She's almost 3. She ain't a baby. Emma's chin lifted with stubborn pride. Here, Lucy, drink this. Lucy drank, her small hands wrapped around the warm cup like it was precious metal. When it was empty, she looked at Jack with whitey, unfocused eyes. More, she whispered. All you want, little one. He brought more milk. Bread softened in warm water. Emma ate too, though she tried to hide her hunger. Her hands shook as she chewed, as she forced herself to eat slowly. When Jack could see, she wanted to devour everything in sight. When's the last time you ate? Jack asked. Mama gave us her food. Said she weren't hungry. Of course she had. That's what mothers did. They starved so their children could eat. Jack had seen it before in the war on the frontier. Women who gave everything until there was nothing left to give. Near dawn, the mother stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, dark and confused. Then terror flooded her face. She tried to sit up, couldn't. Her body wouldn't obey. My girls. Her voice was raw, cracked. Where are my girls, Mama? Emma scrambled to her side, Lucy still clutched in one arm. Mama, we're here. We're safe, ye. Emma. The woman's hand found her daughter's face, touched it, like she couldn't believe it was real. Her fingers trembled against Emma's cheek. Lucy, she's right here, Mama. The man found us. He brought us inside. The woman's gaze snapped to Jack. Her body went rigid, every muscle tensing for fight or flight. Who are you? Her voice carried a lifetime of wariness. What do you want? My name's Jackson Warren, ma'am. This is my ranch. I found you in my barn near frozen to death, just trying to get you warm. I don't... She looked around, taking in the cabin, the fire, the blankets wrapped around her children. I don't understand. You don't need to understand right now. You just need to rest. I can't rest. I have to go. We have to keep moving. She tried to stand, collapsed back onto the rug. Her legs wouldn't hold her. Please, if someone's following us, if he finds us here. Who's following you? The woman pressed her lips together. Her eyes, dark and haunted, gave nothing away. Years of secrets lived in that silence. Years of running. Ain't nobody going to hurt you here, Jack said quietly. I give you my word on that. Your word. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only bitterness worn smooth by repetition. A man's word ain't worth the breath it takes to speak it. Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mama, he gave us food. He wrapped us in blankets. He ain't like the others. The woman looked at her daughter, then back at Jack. Something shifted in her face. Not trust, not yet. But maybe the first crack in the wall she'd built around herself and her children. The first thin sliver of possibility. My name is Sarah, she said finally. Sarah Mitchell. These are my daughters, Emma and Lucy. Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Mitchell. Jack kept his distance, gave her space. Though I wish the circumstances were better. It's just Sarah. My husband is dead. I'm sorry for your loss. Sarah's jaw tightened. Don't be. He wasn't worth mourning. Jack filed that away. Said nothing. Knowledge was power, and right now this woman needed to feel like she held some cards. He could wait. He was good at waiting. 7 years of practice had taught him patience. Lucy began to cough. Deep, rattling coughs that shook her small body. Sarah pulled her close, rubbed her back, murmured soft words that had no power against sickness, but carried all the power of a mother's love. She needs a doctor, Jack said. There ain't no doctor. There ain't no help. Sarah's voice was flat. There's just us. There's a doctor in Coal Creek, about 2 hours' ride. Sarah looked up sharply. You'd ride 2 hours in this weather for a stranger's child. Jack met her eyes, saw the disbelief there, the hope she was afraid to feel. I would. Something passed between them. A current electric and strange. Sarah's expression flickered uncertain. Why, she asked. Why would you do that? Because I couldn't save my own daughter, Jack thought. Because she died in my arms while I begged God for a miracle that never came. Because I've spent 7 years punishing myself for something I couldn't control, and maybe this is my chance to do something that matters. But he didn't say that. Instead, he said simply, because it needs doing. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, a decision made. If you can get a doctor, I'd be grateful. Stay by the fire. Keep her warm. I'll be back as soon as I can. Jack pulled on his spare coat, grabbed his hat. At the door, he paused. Emma stood near her mother, that too-old wisdom in her young eyes. Emma, the girl looked up. You take care of your mama and sister while I'm gone. Can you do that? Emma's chin lifted. I always do. Something in Jack's chest cracked. This child, 5 years old and carrying a weight no child should carry. He'd seen that look before. In the mirror after his own father died and left him to run the ranch at 16. After Abigail and Grace were buried and the world expected him to just keep going. I know you do, he said quietly. But now you got help. You ain't alone anymore. He stepped out into the frozen dark. The wind hit him like a wall, but Jack didn't hesitate. He saddled Bella with practiced efficiency, mounted up, and rode for Coal Creek. Behind him, the cabin glowed warm against the endless white. 3 lives inside. 3 strangers who'd stumbled into his world on the last night of the year. 3 people who might just save him from drowning in his own silence. The ride to Cold Creek was brutal. Wind cut through Jack's clothes, numbed his face, made Bella fight every step. But he pushed on mile after frozen mile until the lights of town appeared through the swirling snow like beacons of hope. Doc Harrison's house sat at the edge of Main Street. Jack pounded on the door until it swung open, revealing the old doctor in his nightshirt, spectacles, crooked on his weathered face. What in God's name? Doc Harrison squinted through the lenses. Jackson Warren. I ain't seen you in 6 months. What's wrong? Got a sick child at my place. Toddler, maybe 3 years old, coughing, bad fever coming on. Her mama and sister are there too. Found them in my barn tonight near Frozen Through. Doc Harrison was already reaching for his coat. A woman and 2 children out in this weather. How'd they end up in your barn? Don't know the full story yet, but the little one needs help. Let me get my bag. 5 minutes later, they were riding back through the storm. Doc Harrison, for all his 60 years, kept pace without complaint. He'd been a field surgeon in the war, had stitched men together under cannon fire. A little snow wasn't going to stop him. They reached the cabin as the first gray light of dawn touched the horizon. New Year's Day, 1888. A new year. Maybe a new beginning. Sarah, I brought the doctor. Sarah stood by the fire, Lucy in her arms. Emma sat nearby, watching with those sharp eyes. When she saw Doc Harrison, her face went wary, suspicious. Another man. Another threat. It's all right, Emma, Jack said. He's here to help. That's what they always say, Emma muttered. Doc Harrison approached slowly, keeping his hands visible. His movements were deliberately unthreatening. Well now, young lady, you're absolutely right to be cautious. Tell you what, you can stay right there and watch everything I do. Make sure I don't do nothing I shouldn't. Deal? Emma considered this, her eyes narrowed, weighing him. Deal. The doctor turned to Sarah. Ma'am, may I examine your daughter? Sarah hesitated, then nodded. She laid Lucy on the rug, kept one hand on the child's chest. A tether. An anchor. Lucy whimpered, reached for her mother with small, fevered hands. Shh, baby. The doctor's just gonna look at you. Mama's right here. Doc Harrison worked quickly and gently. He listened to Lucy's chest with his stethoscope, the metal cold against her pale skin. Checked her temperature with practiced fingers against her forehead. Examined her throat, her ears. His face grew serious. How long has she been coughing? 4 days, Sarah said. Maybe 5. Started just before we left the trading post. And you've been traveling in this weather the whole time? We didn't have a choice. Doc Harrison exchanged a look with Jack. A look that said more than words could. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out several bottles and packets. His hands moved with the efficiency of decades of practice. It's influenza, bad case complicated by the cold exposure. But we caught it in time. He handed Sarah a small bottle, dark glass that caught the firelight. This is for the fever. 1 spoonful every 4 hours. And this? He held up a packet of herbs, dried leaves that smelled of medicine and earth. You brew into tea. Helps with the cough. Will she? Sarah's voice broke. Will she be all right? If she stays warm, gets rest, and takes the medicine. Yes, she's a fighter, this one. Doc Harrison smiled, but his eyes stayed serious. But she can't travel. Not for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer. Sarah's face crumpled. 2 weeks. 2 weeks stuck in a stranger's cabin with no money, no resources, nothing but the charity of a man she didn't know. 2 weeks of vulnerability, of owing someone, of being trapped. She can stay here, Jack said before Sarah could speak. All 3 of you, long as you need. Sarah's head snapped up. We can't impose on you like that. It ain't an imposition. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. I know you're a mother who near killed herself, keeping her children alive. I know your daughter is sick and needs rest. That's enough. Doc Harrison smiled slightly, a knowing look in his old eyes. He's a stubborn one, this Jackson Warren. Once he makes up his mind, there ain't no changing it. Trust me, I've tried. Sarah looked from the doctor to Jack. Her eyes were wet, but she blinked the tears back. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this? Because it's New Year's Day, Jack thought. Because 7 years ago I couldn't save them. Because maybe this is my chance to do something right. Because when I held Abigail in my arms and felt her go cold, when I watched Grace take her last breath, I swore I'd never feel that helpless again. And here you are giving me a chance to keep that promise. But he didn't say any of that. He just shrugged. It's the right thing to do. Doc Harrison stayed through the morning, monitoring Lucy, making sure the fever was under control. When he finally prepared to leave, he pulled Jack aside. His voice dropped low, meant only for Jack's ears. That woman's been through something, he said quietly. I've seen the look in her eyes before. The older girl, too. Somebody hurt them, Jack. I figured as much. You sure you know what you're getting into? Jack looked across the cabin at Sarah, who was singing softly to Lucy. At Emma, who sat close by, still watching him with those guarded eyes. No, he admitted. But that don't change nothing. Doc Harrison clapped him on the shoulder. His hand was warm, solid. Real. Abigail would be proud of you. She always said you had too much heart to waste it on being alone. Abigail, not Mary. The doc had gotten it wrong, but Jack didn't correct him. Let the old man have his memories. Let them all have their ghosts. I'll check back in a few days. The doctor continued. Keep that little one warm and rested. And Jack, yeah, Happy New Year. Jack almost laughed. Same to you, Doc. After Harrison left, silence settled over the cabin. Lucy slept, her breathing easier now. The medicine was already working, loosening the congestion in her small chest. Sarah sat beside her, exhausted but unwilling to rest. A mother's vigil that knew no end. Emma approached Jack carefully, like he was a wild animal that might startle. Mister, you can call me Jack. Mr. Jack. She considered this, testing the words. Accepted them. Are we really going to stay here if your mama agrees yes? For how long? Long as you need, Emma's brow furrowed. What if we need to stay forever? The question hung in the air between them. Jack felt something shift in his chest, like a door creaking open after years of being locked. Rusty hinges protesting, but moving nonetheless. Then I reckon we'll figure that out when we get there. Emma studied him for a long moment. Her eyes, so old and such a young face, measured him again. Then slowly she nodded. You ain't like other men, she said. Other men hurt. You don't seem like you'd hurt. Jack knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. The floor was hard beneath his knees, but he stayed there, meeting her gaze. I'm not going to lie to you, Emma. This world's got plenty of men who hurt. But I ain't one of them. And while you're under my roof, ain't nobody going to lay a hand on you or your mama or your sister. You got my word on that. Your word, Emma repeated, testing the weight of it. My word. Something in her face softened. Not trust, not yet, but the first crack in the armor she'd built around her small, battered heart. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, Mr. Jack. Sarah had been watching the exchange. When Jack looked up, her eyes were wet again. She pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting back tears that wanted to fall. Tears that carried too much weight to release in front of a stranger. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice barely carried across the room. For talking to her like a person. Most folks treat her like she's invisible. She ain't invisible. Jack stood, his knees creaking. She's brave. Maybe the bravest person I ever met. Sarah pressed her hand harder against her mouth, fighting for control. Jack looked away, gave her privacy. He understood. Sometimes kindness was harder to bear than cruelty. Sometimes being seen hurt worse than being ignored. Outside, the sun rose higher, painting the snow gold and pink. The storm had passed. The new year had begun. And in a cabin on the edge of nowhere, 4 wounded souls had been thrown together by chance, by fate, by the simple accident of a barn door left ajar. Jack didn't know what came next. Didn't know if Sarah would stay or flee. Didn't know if he could open his heart again after keeping it locked away for so long. But as he watched Emma curl up beside her mother, as he heard Lucy's soft breathing in the warmth of the fire, he felt something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Hope, fragile as new ice, terrifying as thunder. But there. He added another log to the fire, settled into his chair, and kept watch through the long morning. Outside, the world was cold and white and empty. Inside, warmth held. And for the first time since he'd buried his wife and daughter beneath the cottonwood tree, Jackson Warren didn't feel completely alone. 3 days passed like a fever dream. Lucy's fever broke on the second morning, and by the third she was sitting up, demanding food with the stubborn insistence of a child who'd been denied too long. Sarah wept with relief, though she tried to hide it, turned her face away, his shoulders shaking. Emma just held her sister's hand and whispered, I told you she'd be okay. I told you. Jack kept his distance. He cooked meals, tended the fire, checked in on the stock. He gave Sarah and her daughters space to heal, to breathe, to exist without a man hovering over them. He'd seen the way Sarah flinched when he moved too fast, the way Emma positioned herself between him and her mother whenever he entered the room. They'd been hurt before. He wasn't going to add to that. On the 4th morning, Esquera appeared at the kitchen stove while Jack was making coffee. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and brewing coffee, simple and honest. Let me, she said quietly. Jack stepped back without argument. Sarah moved into the space he'd vacated, her hands already reaching for the pan. She moved with practiced efficiency, the movements of a woman who'd spent years cooking for others. You don't have to earn your keep, Jack said. You're guests. We ain't guests. Sarah cracked eggs into the pan with sharp, decisive motions. We're charity, and I don't take charity without giving something back. It ain't in my nature. Jack watched her work. Her movements were quick, competent. But there was tension in her shoulders that never quite left, a weariness that lived in her bones. Fair enough, he said. But if you're cooking, you're eating too, properly, not giving your portion to the girls. Sarah's hand stilled on the spatula. Emma told you. She's worried about you. Says you've been giving them your food since you left the trading post. They needed it more than I did. You near died in my barn, Sarah. You need food as much as they do. Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. All right. They ate together, the four of them, around Jack's rough wooden table. Lucy sat in Sarah's lap, still too weak to sit alone, but strong enough to demand bites of egg and bread. Emma ate carefully, watching Jack over every mouthful. This is good, Emma said finally, her voice grudging like she didn't want to admit it. Better than Mama's? Emma Grace Mitchell. Sarah's tone carried warning. What? It's true. Oh, Jack bit back a smile. Your mama's been too tired to cook proper. Give her a few days, she'll put me to shame. Emma considered this, maybe. After breakfast, Jack went to check the horses. When he returned, Sarah was washing dishes in the basin, her back to him. She didn't turn around when he entered, but her shoulders tensed. She knew he was there. There's something I need to tell you, she said quietly. About why we're here, why someone might be looking for us. Jack hung his coat by the door. Waited. He'd learned patience during his years as a ranger. Learned that silence could pull truth better than questions ever could. My husband, Robert. Sarah's voice was flat, controlled, carefully empty. He wasn't a good man. I thought he was when I married him. He was kind, at first gentle. But after Emma was born, something changed. He started drinking, started failing at business. And when he failed, he needed someone to blame. Her hands stilled in the water. Soap bubbles clung to her fingers like tiny clouds. He hit me the first time when Emma was 2. I told myself it was an accident, that he didn't mean it. That's what women tell ourselves, ain't it? That if we just try harder, if we just do better, it'll stop. She laughed. The sound was bitter, worn smooth by repetition. It never stops. Sarah, you don't have to tell me this. Yes, I do. She turned to face him. Her eyes were dry but haunted by things she could never unsee. You took us in. You deserve to know what you took in. Jack said nothing, just waited. Robert died 18 months ago. Horse threw him, broke his neck. Sarah's voice didn't waver. I was supposed to mourn him. The whole town expected it. Black dress tears the proper widow's grief. Instead, I felt relief. She looked at Jack. What kind of woman feels relief when her husband dies? The kind who's been hurt too long. Jack said quietly. Sarah's breath caught. She looked at him like she'd never seen him before. Like he'd said something in a language she'd forgotten she understood. After he died, she continued, her voice steadier now. I found out about the debts. Robert owed money to everyone in town. Money we didn't have. The creditors took everything. The house, the furniture, even my mother's china. We had nothing left. So you decided to head west. I had a sister in Oregon. Had. Sarah's jaw tightened. She wrote me last year, said there was room for us if we could get there. So I joined a wagon train in Kansas. Used the last of our money for passage. Jack could see where this was going. We made it to Wyoming before Lucy got sick. Sarah continued. The wagon master said we were slowing them down. Said they couldn't wait for a sick child. They left you at a trading post 20 miles from here. Promised someone else would come through. Someone who could take us the rest of the way. Sarah's voice cracked. No one came. We waited 3 weeks. When I couldn't pay for our room anymore, the owner said we had to leave. So you walked, in the middle of winter, with a sick baby. I didn't have a choice, Jack. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed to the stove, poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Sarah. The ceramic was warm in his hands. You said someone might be looking for you. Sarah wrapped her hands around the cup, let the warmth seep into her fingers. Robert had a brother, Caleb. He's convinced Robert hid money somewhere before he died. Money that rightfully belongs to him. She stopped, swallowed hard. He came to the house after the funeral. Tore through everything looking for it. When he didn't find anything, he He hurt you. Sarah's voice went cold, hard as winter stone. He hurt Emma, grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises, said if I didn't tell him where the money was, he'd do worse. Her eyes met Jack's. There is no money. Robert drank and gambled every penny we ever had. But Caleb don't believe that. He thinks I'm hiding it. Is he the one who's following you? You don't know. I thought I saw him in Laramie before we joined the wagon train, but I can't be sure. Maybe I'm just jumping at shadows. She set down the cup. Her hands were shaking. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought this trouble to your door. As soon as Lucy's strong enough, we'll leave. Go where Sarah didn't answer. Because there was no answer. She had no money, no wagon, no provisions. The passes were snowed shut until spring. She had nowhere to go and no way to get there. You'll stay here, Jack said. Through winter at least, until the pass is open. I can't ask that of you. You ain't asking. I'm offering. Jack met her eyes. No strings, Sarah. No expectations. Just a warm place to rest until you figure out what comes next. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes searched his face, looking for the trap, the hidden motive, the price that would come due. She'd spent years on learning to read men's faces to anticipate the blow before it came. She found nothing but quiet sincerity. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this? Jack looked away toward the window where snow was falling again, soft and silent and endless. Because somebody should have done it for you a long time ago, and nobody did. Sarah pressed her hand to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and this time she didn't try to hide them. Thank you, she managed. Thank you, Jack. He just nodded, uncomfortable with gratitude. Drink your coffee before it gets cold. The days took on a rhythm after that. Sarah insisted on cooking and cleaning, working with a fierce determination that Jack recognized. She needed to contribute, needed to feel useful, needed to feel like she wasn't just taking. So he let her have that dignity. Emma remained wary, but she was watching, always watching. Jack felt her eyes on him when he fed the horses, when he chopped wood, when he sat by the fire in the evening reading one of his few books. She was studying him, he realized, testing him, waiting to see if he'd prove himself a monster like the other men she'd known. Jack didn't try to win her over. He just did what he always did. Worked hard, spoke little, treated everyone in his house with respect. If that wasn't enough for Emma, nothing would be. Lucy, on the other hand, had no such reservations. By the end of the first week, she was following Jack around the cabin like a small, curious shadow. What are you doing? She asked, tugging at his sleeve while he repaired a broken chair. Fixing this leg. See how it wobbles. I'm making it steady again. Can I help? Jack looked at her small hands, then at the hammer in his own. Heavy enough to hurt if she dropped it. You can hold the nails for me, but don't put them in your mouth. I'm not a baby, Lucy said indignantly. Babies put things in their mouths. I'm 3. Almost 3, Emma corrected from across the room. Close enough, Lucy shot back. Jack hid a smile. You're right, my mistake. Lucy beamed at him. Mr. Jack, do you got any little girls? The question hit like a fist to the gut. Jack's hands stilled on the wood. The hammer hung frozen in mid-swing. I did, he said quietly. Once. Where'd she go, Lucy? Sarah's voice was sharp. That ain't a polite question. It's all right. Jack forced his hands to move to keep working. She went to heaven. A long time ago. Oh. Lucy considered this with the matter-of-fact acceptance of very young children. Was she nice? She was the nicest person I ever knew. What was her name? Grace? That's pretty. Lucy patted his arm with one small hand. I bet she was pretty too. Jack's throat tightened. He couldn't speak, could only nod. Sarah caught his eye across the room. Her expression was soft with understanding. She knew loss. She recognized it in others. Knew the shape of it, the weight. That night after the girls were asleep, Sarah found Jack on the porch. He was standing in the cold, staring up at the stars like he was looking for answers written in their light. You don't have to talk about it, she said softly. I know how it feels. The questions that cut too deep. Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough with disuse. Her name was Abigail, my wife. We built this place together, her and me. Claimed the land, raised the walls, planted the garden. He paused. The words came hard like pulling splinters from deep wounds. She got pregnant the year after we finished the cabin. We were so happy. Built the nursery, sewed the clothes, picked out names. Everything was perfect. Sarah waited, not speaking, just present. She went into labor early, middle of winter, just like now. Jack's voice broke. I rode for the doctor, but there was a storm. By the time I got back, by the time I got back, it was over. Abigail was gone. Grace lived for 3 hours, just long enough for me to hold her, to see her eyes open once and close forever. Jack. I buried them together under the cottonwood tree out back. He finally turned to look at her. His eyes were dry, but the pain in them was bottomless. That was 7 years ago. I ain't let anyone in since. Ain't wanted to. Because caring means losing, and I couldn't survive losing again. Sarah stepped closer. Her hand found his in the darkness. Cold fingers wrapping around cold fingers, finding warmth in the joining. I understand, she said quietly. I do. But Jack, you didn't lose them because you loved them. You lost them because life is cruel and unfair. Closing yourself off don't protect you from pain. It just means you suffer alone. Speaking from experience. Yes, her grip tightened on his hand. I spent years being afraid. Afraid to leave Robert. Afraid to stay. Afraid of my own shadow. But fear don't keep you safe. It just keeps you small. They stood together in the cold. Two wounded people holding on to each other in the darkness. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Sometimes silence said more than words ever could. The next morning, Jack found Emma standing in front of the closed door at the end of the hall. The nursery door. He'd kept it shut for 7 years. Hadn't been able to face what was inside. What's in there? Emma asked without turning around. Jack's heart clenched. Nothing important. Mama said you had a little girl. Is this her room, Emma? I ain't going to touch nothing. Emma turned to face him, her eyes holding something like compassion. Something no 5-year-old should have to carry. I just wanted to know. Jack stood there frozen. He could feel the weight of the closed door, the memories locked behind it. Abigail's rocking chair, Grace's cradle, the tiny clothes they'd never gotten to use. 7 years of grief sealed away like a tomb. Yes, he said finally. It was her room. It was supposed to be her room. Emma nodded slowly. My daddy had a room like that. A room where he kept all his bottles. Mama never let us go in there. She said some rooms hold too much pain to open. Your mama's a wise woman. Are you ever going to open it? The question hung in the air between them. Jack looked at the door, at the brass handle he hadn't touched in 7 years. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe someday. Emma studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised them both. She reached out and touched his hand. Just briefly before pulling back like she'd touched something hot. When you do, she said quietly, maybe it won't hurt so much if somebody is there with you. She walked away, leaving Jack standing alone in the hallway. His hand tingled where she touched it. Such a small gesture. Such a massive gift of trust from a child who trusted no one. He looked at the nursery door. For the first time in 7 years, he thought about opening it. Not today. Not yet. But the thought was there, and that was something. 2 weeks in, Doc Harrison returned to check on Lucy. He pronounced her fully recovered, marveling at how quickly she'd bounced back. The resilience of children never ceased to amaze him. Children are resilient, Doc Harrison said, packing up his bag. More resilient than we give them credit for. Thank you, Doctor. Sarah's voice was thick with gratitude. I don't know how I can ever repay you. No payment necessary, ma'am. Jack's already settled the account. Sarah's head snapped toward Jack. You paid him? It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Medicine House calls your time. Sarah looked at Doc Harrison. It all costs money. Money I can't pay back. Ain't I asking you to pay it back? Sarah's eyes flashed with something between anger and desperation. I don't take charity. Good thing this ain't charity then. Jack met her gaze steadily. This is a man helping a woman who needs it. Nothing more, nothing less. Sarah, Doc Harrison interrupted gently. Let it go. Trust me when I say Jackson Warren is the most stubborn man in Wyoming territory. You won't win this argument. Sarah looked between them. Frustration and gratitude warred on her face. Finally, she let out a breath. Fine, but I'm going to find a way to repay you somehow. You already are, Jack said quietly. This cabin's cleaner than it's been in 7 years. Emma's been helping me with the horses. Lucy makes me laugh. That's payment enough. Sarah's expression softened. She didn't argue further. After the doctor left, Jack went to the barn to tend the horses. He was brushing down Bella when he heard footsteps behind him. Emma stood in the doorway, her small form silhouetted against the white snow. "Can I come in?" she asked. Of course, she approached slowly, watching the horse with wide eyes. "She's big. Her name's Bella. She's gentle as a lamb. You want to pet her?" Heinz, Emma hesitated, then nodded. Jack guided her hand to Bella's nose, showed her how to stroke gently. The horse nickered softly, warm breath misting in the cold air. "She's soft," Emma whispered, "and warm. Horses are good company. They don't judge, don't lie. They just are what they are." "I like that." Emma continued petting Bella, her small hand moving in careful strokes. Her whole body had relaxed in a way Jack had never seen before. "Mr. Jack, yeah, my daddy used to hit Mama. He hit me once too. That's why I don't like men much." Jack's chest tightened. He'd suspected as much, but hearing it from her own lips was different, made it real in a way suspicion never could. "I'm sorry that happened to you, Emma. No child should ever be hurt like that. Are you going to hit us?" "No." Jack knelt down to her level, made sure she could see his eyes. "Never, not ever. I give you my word on that, Emma. And I don't break my word." Emma searched his face the way she always did, looking for the lie, looking for the crack in the mask that would reveal the monster underneath. This time she seemed to find something different. "Okay," she said softly. "I believe you." It was the first time she'd said those words, the first real crack in the wall she'd built around herself. Jack felt the weight of it, the responsibility. This child's trust was a precious thing, fragile as glass. He would not break it. "Can I?" Emma hesitated. "Can I come see the horses again sometime, anytime you want?" A small smile flickered across her face, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Not the careful, guarded expression she usually wore. Something genuine, something that looked like childhood. "Okay, I'd like that." She turned and ran back toward the cabin, leaving Jack alone with the horses and the strange, unfamiliar warmth spreading through his chest. Hope. That's what it was. Hope taking root in frozen ground. Dangerous, fragile, but growing nonetheless. That evening, while the girls slept, Sarah sat with Jack by the fire. She'd taken to joining him in the evenings, the two of them sharing comfortable silence while the flames crackled low. It was a piece Jack hadn't known he was missing. "Emma talked to you today," Sarah said. "In the barn?" "She did." "She told you about Robert?" "Some of it." Sarah stared into the fire. "I should have left him years ago. Should have taken the girls and run the first time he raised his hand to me. But I was scared. Scared of being alone, of having nothing, of not being able to provide for them." She laughed bitterly. "And now look at us. We've got nothing anyway. All that fear, and we ended up exactly where I was afraid of ending up." "You got your girls," Jack said quietly. "They're alive. They're healthy. They love you. That ain't nothing, Sarah. That's everything." Sarah's eyes glistened. "You really believe that I know it? I'd give anything to have my daughter back. Anything, but she's gone, and I got nothing left of her but memories in a room I can't bear to open." He paused. "You still got your girls. You still got a chance. Don't waste it grieving what you lost. Focus on what you've still got." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned over and kissed his cheek. Soft and quick, barely a brush of lips against skin, but it burned like fire. "Thank you, Jack, for everything." She stood and went to bed, leaving Jack alone by the dying fire. His cheek burned where her lips had touched. His heart pounded like he'd just run a mile. He touched the spot with trembling fingers, as if he could capture the ghost of her kiss and hold it there forever. He was in trouble, deep trouble, because for the first time in 7 years, Jackson Warren was feeling something he'd sworn never to feel again, and it terrified him more than any blizzard ever could. 3 weeks after he'd found them in the barn, Jack came in from checking the stock to find Emma standing in the kitchen with a determined look on her face. That look that said she'd made me her mind about something and no force on earth would change it. "I want to learn to ride," she announced. Sarah looked up from the bread she was kneading. "Emma, you said when I was bigger I could learn. I'm bigger now." Emma's chin jutted out stubbornly. "Almost 6, and Mr. Jack's got horses. Good horses. Gentle ones." Emma turned to Jack, her jaw set in that way he'd come to recognize. "Will you teach me?" Jack looked at Sarah. She met his eyes, something unreadable in her expression. a mix of fear and hope and resignation. "It's your decision," she said quietly. She's been asking since she could talk. "Please, Mr. Jack." Emma clasped her hands together in supplication. "I'll be real careful. I'll do everything you say. I won't complain even if I fall off." Jack felt the corner of his mouth twitch. This child who trusted no one was asking him for something, trusting him enough to teach her, trusting him with her safety, her body, her life. "All right," he said, "but we start slow. No complaints." Emma's face lit up like sunrise. It was the first time he'd seen her look like a child instead of a tiny worried adult carrying the weight of the world on her narrow shoulders. "Thank you, Mr. Jack. Thank you, thank you, thank you." She threw her arms around his waist before she could stop herself. Then she froze, realizing what she'd done. Her whole body went tense, waiting for rejection, for anger, for punishment. Jack felt her fear like a physical thing. Carefully, slowly, he put one hand on her shoulder, light as a feather, giving her every chance to pull away. "You're welcome, Emma." She looked up at him with wide eyes. Then she smiled, a real smile, and the ice around Jack's heart cracked a little more. Let another sliver of warmth seep through. The lesson started the next day. Jack brought out Bella, his gentlest mare, and showed Emma how to approach her. The proper way, the respectful way. "Horses deserve respect. Horses can feel when you're scared," he explained. "You gotta be calm, confident. Let her know you ain't a threat." "I ain't scared," Emma said, though her voice trembled slightly. "Of course you ain't. You're the bravest girl I know." Emma stood a little taller at that. She reached out and touched Bella's nose, her small hand shaking only slightly. The horse snuffled her palm warm breath against cold skin. "Good," Jack said. "Now let's get you in the saddle." He lifted her up, settled her on Bella's back. Emma gripped the saddle horn with white-knuckled hands, her whole body rigid with tension. Every muscle locked tight. "Breathe," Jack said. "You're doing fine. What if I fall, then you get back up? That's what riding is. Falling and getting back up." Emma looked down at him, something shifting in her eyes. "That's what life is too, ain't it?" Jack's throat closed up. This child, this wise, wounded child who understood too much for her years, who'd seen things no child should see and survived anyway. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I reckon it is." Sarah watched from the porch, Lucy in her arms. When Jack glanced her way, she was smiling. Not the guarded smile she usually wore, careful and controlled. Something softer. Something that made his chest ache with longing he couldn't name. He looked away quickly, focused on Emma, on the lesson, on anything but the woman who was slowly, inexorably becoming necessary to him. The days grew longer as January bled into February. Emma's riding improved steadily. She went from terrified to cautious to confident, her small body learning to move with the horse instead of against it. She had a natural seat, a gift for understanding how horses moved and thought. "She's got a natural seat," he told Sarah one evening. "Born rider. She's never been this happy." Sarah's voice was soft, tinged with wonder. "Not since before Robert. Not since before everything went wrong. She's a good kid, strong, resilient. She trusts you." Sarah turned to face him, her eyes intent. "Do you understand how rare that is? After what she's been through, after what she's seen, she trusts you. That means something, Jack." He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Let the silence speak for him. Sarah stepped closer. The space between them felt charged electric. "I know," she said. "I know you got walls. I know you were scared. God knows I'm scared too. But Jack, what we've got here, this family we've built, it's real. It matters. And I don't want to lose it because we're both too afraid to admit what's happening." Jack's heart pounded. "What's happening?" Sarah met his eyes. "You know what's happening. You feel it same as I do." He did know. He did feel it. Every morning when he woke up and heard her humming in the kitchen. Every evening when they sat by the fire and talked about nothing and everything. Every time she laughed. Every time she touched his arm. Every time she looked at him like he was something worth looking at. "I can't," he said, his voice rough. "Sarah, I can't do this again. I can't love someone and lose them. It near killed me the first time. It will kill me the second. Who says you're going to lose us?" "Everyone leaves. Everyone dies. That's how life works." Sarah took his hands in hers. Her grip was strong, steady. warm despite the cold. Life is also living, Jack. It's taking chances. It's opening your heart even when you know it might get broken. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I spent years being afraid, years letting fear control everything I did. And you know what I got for it? Nothing but regret. I ain't gonna live like that anymore. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to stay, not just until spring, not just until we can travel. I want to stay here with you and build something real. If you'll have us, Jack's chest constricted. Everything he wanted was standing right in front of him, a woman who understood him, children who needed him, a chance to fill this empty cabin with laughter and life again. And he was terrified, paralyzed by the fear of loss, of pain, of grief that could crush him like a boot on an ant. I need time, he managed. I need to think. Something flickered in Sarah's eyes. Disappointment, maybe? Or understanding? She nodded slowly, her hands falling away from his. Take all the time you need. She released his hands and walked away, leaving Jack alone with his fear and his hope and the unbearable weight of choice. The future hung before him like a door. He could open it and step through into unknown territory, or he could keep it closed and stay safe in his prison of grief. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, while Sarah and the girls breathed softly in the other room. Abigail's face swam before his eyes, Grace's small body in his arms, the graves beneath the cottonwood tree covered in snow and silence. But other images came too. Emma's smile when she finally cantered alone. Lucy's laughter when he swung her in the air. Sarah's eyes warm and steady, looking at him like he was worth something, like he mattered, like he was more than just a man waiting to die. Could he do it? Could he open his heart again, knowing how much it would hurt if he lost them? The question followed him into troubled sleep, where he dreamed of doors opening and closing, of hands reaching for him across vast distances, of voices calling his name through snow and darkness. Morning came gray and cold. Jack rose before dawn, as always, and went to check the horses. He was brushing Bella down when he heard hoofbeats approaching. Fast hoofbeats. Urgent. A rider coming fast. Jack's hand moved instinctively to the rifle he kept by the barn door. He watched the approaching figure, tension coiling in his gut like a snake preparing to strike. The rider was a man, tall, lean, with a face that might have been handsome if it weren't twisted by greed and malice. He reined up in front of the barn, his eyes scanning the property with predatory focus. Morning, Jack said, keeping his voice neutral. Can I help you? The man smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who'd cornered prey and knew it. I'm looking for someone. A woman and two little girls. Word at the trading post says they headed this direction about a month back. Jack's blood ran cold, but he kept his face blank, his posture relaxed, unthreatening. Lot of travelers come through here. What's your business with them? Family business. The man swung down from his horse, moved closer. Too close, violating the unspoken rules of frontier courtesy. My name's Caleb Mitchell. The woman I'm looking for is my brother's widow. She's got something that belongs to me and I aim to get it back. Caleb Mitchell, Sarah's nightmare, standing in Jack's barn like he had every right to be there. Like he owned the world and everyone in it. Don't know anyone by that name? Jack said calmly. That's so. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Funny thing, I've been tracking them for weeks. They disappeared around here and nobody in Coal Creek knows nothing about them. But smoke's been coming from your chimney day and night. More smoke than one man needs. I like to keep warm. I'm sure you do. Caleb stepped closer, close enough that Jack could smell the whiskey on his breath, smell the rot underneath. Let me tell you something, friend. I've come a long way for what's mine, and I don't take kindly to folks who get in my way. That a threat? It's a fact. Caleb's hand rested on the pistol at his hip. Now I'm going to ask you one more time. You seen a woman with two little girls? Dark hair, early 20s, got a look about her like she's scared of her own shadow. Jack met his eyes, held his gaze steady and cold. I told you, I don't know anyone by that name. For a long moment, neither man moved. The air between them crackled with violence, barely restrained. Then Caleb laughed, a cold, ugly sound that held no humor at all. All right, have it your way, but I'll be around, friend. I'll be watching. And when I find out you're lying, and I will find out, well, he mounted his horse, tipped his hat mockingly. Let's just say you'll regret it. He spurred his horse and rode off, disappearing into the gray morning. Jack stood frozen, his heart pounding. Then he grabbed his rifle and strode toward the cabin. Sarah was at the stove when he burst through the door. She took one look at his face and went pale. Flour dusted her hands, forgotten. "What happened? We got trouble." Jack crossed to the window, looked out, scanned the horizon for threats. "Man came by the barn, name of Caleb Mitchell, said he's looking for you." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. The spoon she'd been holding clattered to the floor. "No, no, no, no. How did he find us?" "Don't know, but he's suspicious. He'll be back. We have to go." Sarah's voice rose with panic. "We have to leave right now before he—" "Sarah." Jack gripped her shoulders, forced her to look at him. "Listen to me, you can't run. Not in the middle of winter. Not with the girls. You'd die before you got 20 miles. But if he finds us here, if he hurts the girls, he ain't gonna hurt anyone. I won't let him." Sarah searched his face, her eyes wild with fear. "You don't know him, Jack. You don't know what he's capable of. He hurt Emma once. He'd do worse if he got the chance. Then we make sure he don't get the chance." Jack's jaw set hard. "I spent 10 years as a Texas Ranger, Sarah. I faced down outlaws, rustlers, killers. Men who'd gut you for $1 and sleep fine after. I ain't afraid of one man with a grudge. This ain't your fight." "Yes, it is." His voice was quiet but fierce. "You're under my roof, you and your girls. That makes it my fight." Sarah's breath caught. Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot against cold skin. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you keep protecting us?" The answer was there on the tip of his tongue. "Because I love you. Because I can't imagine this cabin without you. Because you and your daughters have given me a reason to live again. Because when I look at you, I see a future instead of just an endless parade of empty days." But he couldn't say it. Not yet. Not with Caleb Mitchell circling like a vulture. Not with danger pressing in from all sides. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said instead. Sarah's expression shifted. She heard what he didn't say, understood what he wasn't ready to admit. "Jack Warren," she said softly, "you are the most stubborn man I ever met. So I've been told." They stood there inches apart while fear and hope and something deeper swirled between them. Then Emma's voice broke the moment. "Mama, what's wrong?" Sarah wiped her eyes quickly, turned to face her daughter. Emma stood in the doorway, Lucy clutching her hand. Both girls looked frightened, picking up on the tension that filled the cabin like smoke. "Nothing, baby. Everything's fine." "You're crying." Emma's eyes moved to Jack. "Did he make you cry?" "No, sweetheart. Mr. Jack didn't do anything wrong." Emma didn't look convinced. She stepped forward, positioning herself between Sarah and Jack. Protective, defensive. A 5-year-old ready to fight the world for her mother. "I heard a horse," Emma said. "Who came?" Sarah and Jack exchanged a look. How much to tell her? How much could a child bear? "A bad man," Jack said finally. "Someone who wants to hurt your family. But I ain't getting to let him." Emma's face went pale, but she didn't cry, didn't scream, just lifted her chin and asked, "Uncle Caleb." Sarah made a small wounded sound. "You remember him?" "I remember he grabbed my arm. I remember he made you cry." Emma's small hands clenched into fists. "I hate him. I do. I hate him, and I hope he dies." "Emma," Sarah knelt down, gathered her daughter in her arms. "I know, baby. I know you're scared, but Mr. Jack is going to keep us safe." "Okay, promise." Emma looked at Jack over her mother's shoulder. Her eyes, so guarded, usually were filled with fear and desperate hope. A child's faith in an adult's ability to fix the world, to make things right. "Promise you won't let him hurt us." Jack crossed to them, knelt down to Emma's level. He took her small hand in his large calloused one, felt how delicate she was, how fragile, how easily she could be broken. "I promise," he said. "On my life, Emma, I won't let anyone hurt you or your mama or Lucy." "Not ever." Emma stared at him for a long moment, measuring, weighing, then slowly she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I believe you." The next few days passed in tense vigilance. Jack rode the property twice a day, rifle always close at hand. He saw signs of someone watching. Tracks in the snow that didn't belong. Boot prints near the fence line. A place where someone had stood for hours watching the cabin. But Caleb didn't show himself again. Playing a waiting game. letting fear do his work for him. Sarah kept the girls close, jumping at every sound. The easy rhythm they'd built over the past weeks was shattered, replaced by fear and waiting. The cabin felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Even the fire seemed to burn less bright. But life had to go on. Chores still needed doing. Animals still needed feeding. And Emma, despite everything, still wanted her writing lessons. "Please, Mr. Jack," she asked on the third morning. "I've been practicing in my head. I know I can do better." Jack looked at Sarah, who nodded wearily. "She needs something normal," Sarah said. "Something to hold on to." So they went to the barn, Jack with his rifle slung over his shoulder, Emma practically vibrating with determination. She mounted Bella without help, this time gathered the reins with confidence. Her posture was good, her hands steady. She'd been practicing all right, thinking about it, preparing. "Good," Jack said. "Now walk her around the paddock. Keep your heels down." Emma nudged Bella into a walk. Her body moved with the horse, naturally finding the rhythm. She looked almost peaceful, almost happy. Like for these few minutes she could forget about bad men and danger and fear. "Faster," she asked. "Let's try a trot. Squeeze with your legs. Gentle." Bella moved into a trot. Emma bounced at first, then found the rhythm. Started posting up and down with the horse's gait. Her face lit up with joy. "You're a natural," Jack called. Emma beamed. For a moment she wasn't a scared little girl with a monster hunting her. She was just a child learning something new, feeling the joy of accomplishment. Then everything went wrong. A gunshot cracked through the air. Bella reared screaming. Emma flew from the saddle, hit the ground hard and didn't move. Jack sprinted toward her, his heart in his throat. Behind him he heard Sarah scream from the cabin. Another shot. Dirt kicked up inches from his feet. Someone was shooting at them. At a child. Jack threw himself over Emma, shielding her body with his own. He looked up, searching for the shooter. Caleb Mitchell stood at the edge of the trees, rifle raised, a cruel smile on his face. "Found you," Caleb called. "Didn't I?" Jack's blood turned to ice. Emma lay motionless beneath him, her small body terrifyingly still. He couldn't tell if she was breathing, couldn't tell if the fall had broken her or if Caleb's bullet had found its mark. "Get up slow," Caleb called, walking closer. "And don't think about reaching for that rifle. I'll put the next one through your skull." Jack raised his hands, moved carefully off Emma. His eyes swept over her small form. No blood. Her chest rose and fell, just knocked unconscious from the fall. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by cold fury. White-hot rage that made his vision narrow, his hands shake. "She's just a child," Jack said. His voice was low and dangerous. "What kind of man shoots at a child, the kind who's tired of being lied to?" Caleb stopped 10 feet away, rifle trained on Jack's chest. "I asked you nice. Asked if you'd seen Sarah and her brats. You looked me in the eye and lied. So you decided to shoot a 5-year-old girl." "I was aiming at the horse." Caleb's smile widened. "Wanted to get your attention. Looks like it worked." Behind them, Sarah burst from the cabin, Lucy in her arms. She froze when she saw Caleb, her face draining of color, going white as snow. "Well, well." Caleb swung the rifle toward her. "There she is, my dear sister-in-law. You've led me on quite a chase, Sarah." "Caleb, please." Sarah's voice shook. "The children—" "Shut up." His voice cracked like a whip. "You know what I want. You've always known. So stop playing games and tell me where Robert hid the money." "There is no money. How many times do I have to tell you Robert drank everything we had, gambled the rest? There's nothing left." "Liar." Caleb stepped closer, rage twisting his features into something inhuman. "Robert told me himself. Said he had a fortune stashed away for hard times. Said no one knew about it but him. Robert was a drunk and a liar. He told you what you wanted to hear so you'd leave him alone. You're lying." Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. "You've been lying since the day he died. But I'm done being patient. You're going to tell me where that money is, or I'm going to start hurting people until you do." Jack watched him carefully, calculating distances. His rifle lay on the ground, too far to reach. But he still had his pistol at his hip. If he could distract Caleb long enough, draw his attention away from Sarah and the girls. "Start with me," Jack said, stepping forward. "You want to hurt someone. Start with me." Caleb swung the rifle back toward him. "Stay where you are. I ain't got no stake in this fight. No reason to lie for her. Or if there's money, I don't know nothing about it. Then why are you protecting her? Because that's what decent men do. They protect women and children from cowards who shoot at little girls. Caleb's face flushed with anger. You calling me a coward, I'm calling you what you are, a bully, a thug, the kind of man who beats on folks weaker than himself because he ain't got the guts to face someone his own size. Jack, don't. Sarah's voice was desperate. You got a lot of nerve, friend. Caleb raised the rifle higher, a lot of nerve for a man with a gun pointed at his heart. Maybe. But I've faced down worse than you. Jack kept his voice calm, steady. I spent 10 years as a Texas Ranger, hunted outlaws across 3 territories, put more men in the ground than I care to count. You think I'm scared of one man with a rifle and a grudge? Something flickered in Caleb's eyes. Doubt, maybe? Or the first stirrings of fear? Jack pressed his advantage. I don't want trouble with you, Caleb said slowly. This ain't your business. You made it my business when you shot at that child, when you threatened a woman under my protection. Jack's voice dropped cold and hard. So here's how this is going to go. You're going to lower that rifle, you're going to get on your horse, and you're going to ride out of here and never come back. Or what? Or I'm going to kill you. The words hung in the air. Simple. Absolute. A promise, not a threat. Caleb stared at Jack, reading the truth in his eyes. This wasn't a bluff. This was a man who had killed before and would kill again if he had to. But Caleb wasn't ready to back down. Not yet. Not when he'd come so far, invested so much. You're fast, he said. I can tell. But are you faster than a bullet? Why don't you find out? For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. Sarah clutched Lucia, her breath coming in terrified gasps. Emma stirred on the ground, moaning softly. And Jack waited, every muscle coiled, ready to draw. The world had narrowed to this single point, this single choice. Life or death measured in fractions of seconds. Then Caleb laughed. You got sand. I'll give you that. He lowered the rifle slightly, but his finger stayed near the trigger. All right, Ranger. Maybe I was a little hasty. Maybe we can work something out. Nothing to work out. You leave, you love. You stay, you die. See, that's where you're wrong. Caleb's smile turned ugly. Because I ain't alone, he whistled, sharp and loud. From the trees behind him, 2 more men emerged. Rough-looking armed, the kind of men who'd kill for money and sleep fine after. Men who'd seen the inside of more jails than honest towns. Meet my friends, Caleb said. They've been helping me track Sarah across 3 states, and they don't take kindly to threats. Jack's heart sank, but he kept his face blank. 3 against 1. Bad odds. Worse if he had to protect Sarah and the girls at the same time. But he'd faced worse, had survived worse. And he'd be damned if he'd let these men hurt the family he'd built. Impressive, he said calmly. Takes 3 of you to threaten 1 woman and 2 children. Real brave, mock all you want. You ain't getting out of this. Caleb gestured to his men. Grab the woman and the brats. We're taking them with us. Like hell you are. Jack moved. His hand dropped to his pistol. Drew and fired in one smooth motion, muscle memory, from 1,000 draws, 1,000 shots. The first man went down with a bullet in his shoulder, screaming. The second dove for cover behind a water trough. Caleb swung his rifle up, but Jack was already moving, putting himself between the guns and Sarah. Get inside, he shouted. Take the girls and get inside, Sarah ran. She scooped up Emma with her free arm, carrying both children toward the cabin. Superhuman strength born of terror. Caleb fired after her, missed. The bullet splintered wood beside the door. Jack fired back, forcing Caleb to duck. You're dead, Caleb screamed. You're dead, you hear me? Jack didn't answer. He was already retreating, covering Sarah's escape. Bullets whizzed past his ear. Another kicked up snow at his feet. He kept moving, kept firing, each shot measured and precise. Not trying to kill, just trying to buy time. Just trying to keep them alive. Until Sarah and the girls were inside and he could slam the door behind them. Bar the door, he ordered, reloading with shaking hands. Stay away from the windows. Jack, you're bleeding. Sarah's voice was high with panic. He looked down. Blood soaked his left arm, dripping onto the floor in dark pools. He hadn't even felt the bullet. Adrenaline had numbed the pain, pushed it away. It's nothing, just a graze. It's not nothing. Sarah was already tearing strips from her petticoat, efficient even in crisis. Sit down and let me. No time. Jack moved to the window, peered out through a crack in the shutter. Caleb and his remaining man, the one he'd shot, was still down, were taking cover behind the barn. They're regrouping, planning their next move. What do? We wait. We watch. And when they make a move, we make ours. Emma stirred in Sarah's arms. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and scared. Mama, what happened? Shh, baby. You fell off the horse, but you're okay now. I heard gunshots. I know. Just stay still, all right. Mr. Jack is going to keep us safe. Emma's gaze found Jack. Even dazed, even terrified, she looked at him with something like faith, something that made his chest tighten with the weight of responsibility. Promise, she whispered. Jack crossed to her, knelt down despite the pain in his arm. He took her small hand in his bloody one, felt how fragile she was, how much she trusted him. I promise, Emma. Whatever happens, I ain't letting them hurt you. She nodded slowly, then closed her eyes again. Sarah pulled her close, rocking her gently. Rocking both girls like she could shield them from the world through will alone. There has to be another way out, Sarah said. A back door, a window. There's a cellar, trap door under the kitchen table, leads to a tunnel that comes out by the creek. Then we should go while there's still number. Jack's voice was hard. I ain't running. This is my land, my home. I won't let men like Caleb drive me out. Jack, please. This isn't worth dying for. Yes, it is. He turned to face her and for the first time let her see everything he felt. Let down every wall he'd built. You're worth dying for. Emma and Lucy are worth dying for. This life we've built, this family, that's worth everything. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Jack, I love you. The words came out rough, desperate. I know I ain't said it. I know I've been too scared to admit it. But I love you, Sarah. I've loved you since you woke up in my cabin and told me a man's word ain't worth nothing. I've loved you every day since, and I'll love you till the day I die, which might be today. She whispered his name again, but he kept talking. Needed to say it all before he lost his nerve. But if it is today, I want you to know. I want you to know that you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. A reason to live. A reason to hope. He cupped her face in his hands. Whatever happens out there, you remember that. You remember I chose this. I chose you. Sarah kissed him, not soft and quick like before, but deep and fierce, pouring everything she felt into it. Fear and love and desperate hope all tangled together. When they finally broke apart, she was crying. I love you too, she said. I love you, Jack Warren. And I'm not going to let you die for us, not today. Sarah, listen to me. Her eyes blazed with sudden determination. There is no money. I told you that, and it's true. But there is something Robert hid before he died. Jack frowned. What are you talking about, papers? Documents. Evidence that Caleb has been stealing from half the businesses in Kansas City for years. Sarah's words came fast now, tumbling over each other. Robert was going to use them as leverage. Make Caleb leave us alone. But he died before he could. She grabbed Jack's hand. That's what Caleb really wants. Not money. Those papers could put him in prison for the rest of his life. Where are they? Hidden in my dress, sewn into the lining. Sarah's voice dropped. I wasn't sure I could trust you. I wasn't sure I could trust anyone, so I kept them close. Just in case. Jack stared at her. All this time she'd been carrying a weapon that could end this. All this time she'd been protecting herself the only way she knew how. And he couldn't blame her for it. Couldn't be angry. She'd learned the hard way that trust could kill. If we give him the papers, Sarah continued, maybe he'll leave. Maybe. No, Jack shook his head. Men like Caleb don't leave witnesses. He'll take those papers and kill us anyway. Make it look like an accident. A fire, maybe. Claim he came too late to save us. Then what do we do? Before Jack could answer, Caleb's voice rang out from outside. Warren, I know you're in there. You got two choices. Send out the woman and the kids and I'll let you live. Or stay inside and I'll burn you all out. Jack moved to the window. Caleb stood in front of the barn, a torch in one hand. His remaining man held another. Flames flickered orange in the gray light. He's bluffing, Sarah said desperately. He wouldn't really. He would, Jack's jaw tightened. Man like that backed into a corner. He'd do anything. You got 1 minute, Caleb shouted. Then we light this place up. Jack looked around the cabin, at the walls he'd built with his own hands, at the memories stored in every corner, Abigail's recipe book on the shelf, the cradle in the nursery, everything he'd held on to for 7 years. Everything he'd been too afraid to let go. And then he looked at Sarah, at Emma pale and scared in her mother's arms, at Lucy clinging to her sister with wide, terrified eyes. The past or the future, grief or hope, death or life. It wasn't really a choice at all. "I'm going out there," Jack said. "No," Sarah grabbed his arm. "They'll kill you." "Maybe, but they'll have to look me in the eye to do it." He pulled his pistol, checked the rounds. "3 shots left. When I go out, you take the girls through the cellar. Get to the creek, follow it south to town. Tell the sheriff what happened. I'm not leaving you. You are because those girls need you alive more than they need me dead." He kissed her forehead, gentle and brief. "Go, Sarah. Please, let me do this." Sarah's face crumpled, but she nodded, because she knew he was right, because she understood sacrifice and love and the terrible math of survival. "Come back to me," she whispered. "Promise me you'll come back. I'll try." He moved to the door, hand on the latch. Behind him, Sarah lifted the trap door, started lowering Lucy into the cellar. Emma stood there swaying slightly, her face pale but determined. "Mr. Jack?" He turned. Emma stood there, looking at him with that guarded, knowing expression. "You're coming back," she said. Not a question, a statement. "You promised you'd keep us safe. You can't do that if you're dead." Jack felt something crack in his chest. This child, this fierce, brave, wounded child who'd finally learned to trust again. He couldn't fail her, couldn't become another man who made promises he didn't keep. "I'll come back," he said. "I swear it, Emma. I'll come back." She nodded once, then let her mother guide her toward the cellar. The last thing Jack saw before he stepped outside was Sarah's face white with terror, her eyes locked on his. "I love you," she mouthed. "I love you too," he mouthed back. Then he opened the door and walked into the cold. Caleb saw him immediately. "Well, well." The hero emerges. His voice dripped with mockery. "Let's talk," Jack said. "Just you and me, man to man, nothing to talk about. Where's Sarah gone? Took the girls and ran while you were making speeches." Caleb's face contorted with rage. "You're lying. Check if you want. Cabin's empty." Jack kept walking, closing the distance between them. "But they ain't your concern anymore, Caleb. I am. You think you can take both of us. Don't have to take both of you." Jack's voice was calm, steady. "Just have to take you. Your friend there, he's hired muscle. Paid to follow orders, not die for nothing. Once you're gone, he'll ride off and never look back." The other man shifted uncomfortably. Caleb noticed. "Don't listen to him, Jake. He's trying to get in your head. I'm telling him the truth." Jack's eyes never left Caleb. "You want to die for this man's grudge, for papers that'll put him in prison if they ever see the light of day?" Jake's grip on his torch wavered. "What papers? Shut up," Caleb snarled. "There ain't no papers. She's been lying this whole time. Have I?" Jack smiled cold and hard. "Then why'd you chase her across 3 states? Why'd you beat her daughter? Why'd you burn through money, hiring thugs to track down a penniless widow?" He shook his head. "Don't make sense. Unless she's got something you need, something worth killing for." Jake looked at Caleb. Doubt flickered in his eyes, growing stronger. "He's playing you," Caleb said desperately. "There ain't nothing. There's proof," Jack interrupted. "Proof that you've been stealing for years. Proof that'll put you away for life. Robert was going to use it against you, but he died before he could. Sarah's had it all along. That's what you're really after." Caleb's face went white, then red, then twisted with homicidal fury. "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" Jack spread his hands. "Go ahead then. Kill me. Burn the cabin. But Sarah's already gone. She's halfway to Cold Creek by now. And when she gets there, she's going to hand those papers to the sheriff. Every lawman in the territory would know your name by sundown. You're bluffing. Am I?" "Silence." Caleb's hands shook. His eyes darted between Jack and Jake, between fury and fear. The torch trembled in his grip, flames dancing. "I'm done," Jake said suddenly. He dropped his torch, stepped back. "You said this was a simple job. Find a woman, get some money. You didn't say nothing about murder. You didn't say nothing about papers or prison. Jake, I'm out. Jake was already walking toward his horse. Deal with this yourself, you coward, Caleb screamed after him. You spineless, gutless coward. But Jake didn't stop. He mounted up and rode off without looking back, leaving Caleb alone in front of the barn. One man against one man, just like Jack had planned. It's over, Caleb, Jack said. You can ride out now, disappear before those papers reach the law. Or you can try to kill me and spend the rest of your life running. Caleb stared at him. His whole body trembled with rage. The torch shook in his white-knuckled grip, scattering sparks. You ruined everything, he whispered. Everything. You ruined yourself. The day you decided to hurt women and children, you sealed your own fate. I'll kill you. Caleb's voice rose. I'll kill you, and then I'll find her, and I'll make her pay for what she's done. He threw the torch at Jack and went for his gun. Time slowed. Jack saw the torch arcing through the air, saw Caleb's hand dropping to his holster, saw the barrel of the pistol swinging up toward his chest. He drew and fired. The bullet caught Caleb in the shoulders, spun him around. His gun went off wild, the shot singing past Jack's ear, close enough to feel the heat. Jack fired again. Caleb staggered, dropped to his knees. The torch landed in the snow and sputtered out hissing. Caleb looked up at him, blood seeping between his fingers where he clutched his shoulder. Finish it, Caleb gasped. Go ahead, finish it. Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. This man had terrorized Sarah, had hurt Emma, had threatened to burn them all alive. He deserved to die. One squeeze of the trigger, and it would all be over. One bullet, and the threat would be gone forever. But Sarah's voice echoed in his head. Those girls need you alive, more than they need me dead. He wasn't a killer anymore, not unless he had no choice. He was a man with something to live for, a man building a future instead of hiding in the past. Jack lowered the gun. You ain't worth the bullet. He kicked Caleb's pistol away out of reach. Sheriff can deal with you. Let the law decide what you deserve. Caleb laughed, a wet, ugly sound. You're a fool. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Maybe. But I'm done letting hate and fear make my choices. Jack stepped back, kept the gun ready, but not aimed. I spent 7 years living like a dead man, grieving, hiding, afraid to let anyone in because I couldn't stand the thought of losing again. He looked toward the horizon where Sarah and the girls had fled. Then they came, a woman and 2 children, half frozen in my barn, and they reminded me what it feels like to hope, to love, to want something more than just survival. He turned back to Caleb. So no, I ain't going to kill you, because I want to be the kind of man they deserve, the kind of man who chooses life over death every time. Caleb spat blood at his feet. Sentimental fool. Maybe. Jack heard hoofbeats in the distance, multiple riders coming fast. But this sentimental fool is the one still standing. The riders crested the hill, Sheriff Coleman and 4 deputies drawn by the sound of gunshots. Sarah must have made it to town, must have raised the alarm, must have sent help, even though every instinct told her to run. Over here, Jack called. Got a wounded man. He needs a doctor and a jail cell in that order. The sheriff dismounted, took in the scene with narrowed eyes. What happened here? Long story. Short version, this man tried to kidnap a woman and her children. Threatened to burn my cabin. Shot at a 5-year-old girl. Sheriff Coleman's face hardened. That true Caleb said nothing, just glared at Jack with pure hatred. I got witnesses, Jack continued. The woman's on her way to town right now, and she's got papers that'll prove this man's been stealing for years. The sheriff nodded slowly. All right, we'll sort it out. He gestured to his deputies. Get him patched up and put him in a cell. Watch him close. They hauled Caleb to his feet, dragged him toward the horses. He twisted around, screaming at Jack. This ain't over. You hear me? This ain't over. Yeah, it is. Jack holstered his pistol. It's been over since the day you decided to pick on people who couldn't fight back. You just didn't know it yet. He watched them ride away, taking Caleb with them. Then he turned and looked at his cabin, still standing, unmarked by fire. The graves under the cottonwood tree undisturbed. The barn where he'd found Sarah and the girls just a month ago quiet now in the winter stillness. His arm throbbed where the bullet had grazed him. His hands shook with the fading rush of adrenaline. But he was alive. They were all alive. And somewhere in Cold Creek, Sarah was waiting for him. Jack mounted Bella, ignored the pain shooting through his arm, and rode toward town. toward the woman he loved, toward the family he thought he'd never have again. The sun was setting when he reached Coal Creek. Orange and pink painted the sky, turning the snow to fire and gold. He found Sarah at the doctor's office. Emma and Lucy huddled against her on a worn wooden bench. She looked up when he walked in. Her face was streaked with tears, her hair wild from running. But to Jack, she'd never looked more beautiful. "You came back," she whispered. "I promised, didn't I?" She flew into his arms, sobbing against his chest. Jack held her tight, breathed in the scent of her hair, felt her heart pounding against his own. Safe. They were safe. "I thought I'd lost you," she said into his shirt. "When I heard the gunshots, when we were running through that tunnel, I thought," "Shh," he stroked her hair. "I'm here, I'm right here, Mr. Jack." Emma threw herself at his legs, wrapping her small arms around his thighs. Lucy toddled after, demanding to be picked up. Jack scooped her with his good arm, held her against his hip. "You came back," Emma said. Her voice was thick with wonder. "You really came back. Told you I would. Nobody ever comes back." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "They always leave. They always break their promises." Jack knelt down, ignoring the pain in his arm, and pulled Emma into a one-armed hug. "I ain't going to leave you," he said fiercely. "Not ever. You're my family now, Emma. You and Lucy and your mama. And I don't abandon family." Emma buried her face in his shoulder and cried. Not scared tears or desperate tears, but the kind of tears that come when something inside you finally breaks open and lets the light in. Healing tears. Hope tears. Sarah knelt beside them, gathered them all into her arms. 4 people wounded and scared and full of hope, holding on to each other like they'd never let go. "Let's go home," Sarah whispered. Jack looked at her. This woman who'd stumbled into his life and changed everything. Who taught him that love was stronger than fear. That family was worth any risk. "Yeah," he said, "let's go home." 2 weeks later, Reverend Thomas arrived on a cold February morning. His horse steamed in the winter air as he approached the cabin. Jack had sent word through the general store, and the preacher had made the journey despite the weather. "Been a long time since I married someone out here," Reverend Thomas said, warming his hands by the fire. "Good to see this old cabin full of life again." "It's been empty too long." Jack agreed. The ceremony was simple. Sarah wore a blue dress she'd sewn from fabric Jack bought in town. Emma wore her best dress, carefully mended and pressed. Lucy had insisted on wearing ribbons in her hair, yellow ones that matched the winter sun. Doc Harrison served as witness along with Mrs. Dawson from the general store. She'd been suspicious of Sarah at first, but had warmed to her after hearing the full story, after seeing how Jack looked at her, after watching the girls bloom under his care. "You picked a good one," Mrs. Dawson told Jack before the ceremony. "That woman's got steel in her spine. She'll do well out here." "I know." Jack adjusted his collar nervously. "I'm the lucky one." The vows were traditional, spoken in the cabin's main room, with the fire crackling warm and the winter light streaming through the windows. Sarah's voice was steady. Jack's cracked twice. Neither of them cared. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Thomas said, smiling. "You may kiss your bride." Jack kissed Sarah softly, tenderly, aware of their audience. Emma giggled. Lucy clapped her hands, and Jack felt something settle in his chest, something that felt like peace. Now for the other matter, the preacher continued pulling papers from his satchel. "I understand there's an adoption to finalize." "Yes, sir," Jack took Sarah's hand. "I want to legally adopt Emma and Lucy as my daughters." Reverend Thomas looked at the girls. "Do you understand what this means? Jackson Warren will become your father in the eyes of the law. He'll have all the rights and responsibilities that entails." Emma nodded solemnly. "We understand. And you consent to this?" "Yes, sir. We want Mr. Jack to be our daddy." She paused. "I mean just Jack. Our Jack. Our Jack," Lucy repeated, beaming. The papers were signed. The Reverend declared it official. And just like that, Jackson Warren went from being a man alone to being a husband and father. A family man, a man with a future. After the preacher and witnesses left, the new family sat together by the fire. Lucy had fallen asleep in Jack's lap. Emma leaned against Sarah, fighting to keep her eyes open. "We should put them to bed," Sarah said softly. "In a minute." Jack looked down at Lucy's sleeping face, at Emma's drooping eyelids. "I just want to remember this. All of us together. A real family." Sarah's hand found his. "We are a real family. We have been since the beginning. since you found us in the barn, since you chose to save us instead of leaving us there. Jack thought about that night. The cold, the snow, the three bodies curled together in his hayloft. He'd come so close to missing them. An hour later, 10 minutes later, and they would have been gone. I didn't choose, he said slowly. It wasn't a decision I had to make. I saw you there, and helping was the only option. Like breathing. That's love, Sarah said simply. That's what love does. It makes the right choice feel inevitable. Emma stirred against her mother. Mama, can I ask Jack something? Of course, sweetheart. The little girl sat up, rubbed her eyes. Jack, can I call you Pa now, since you really are my daddy? Jack's throat closed up. He had to swallow twice before he could speak. Yeah, Emma, you can call me Pa. Pa. Emma tested the words, smiled. I like that. Me too, Lucy mumbled, not quite awake. Pa. Sarah was crying again. Jack was pretty sure he was too. He didn't care. Come on, he said, his voice rough. Let's get you girls to bed. He carried Lucy to the nursery, the room that had waited so long for children to fill it. Sarah followed with Emma. They tucked both girls into the small bed, the one that had been meant for Grace. That would have been Grace's, and now belonged to his daughters. Good night, Pa. Emma's eyes were already closing. Good night, sweetheart. Pa. Lucy's voice was drowsy. Will you be here in the morning? I'll be here every morning, I promise. Good. She smiled, snuggled deeper into the blankets. I love you, Pa. I love you too, Lucy. Both of you. More than you'll ever know. He stood in the doorway watching them sleep. Sarah slipped her arm through his. How does it feel? She asked, being a father again. Jack considered the question. He thought about Grace, about the 3 hours he'd had with her, about the 7 years of grief that followed. He thought about Emma and Lucy, about the weeks they'd been together, about the lifetime stretching ahead of them. It feels like coming home, he said finally. Like I was lost for a long time and now I'm found. Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder. Welcome home, Jack. Welcome home, Sarah. Spring came slowly that year. The snow retreated inch by inch, revealing brown earth in the first tentative shoots of green. The creek thawed. Birds returned. Life stirred after the long winter sleep. Jack taught Emma to ride properly, not just walking, but trotting, cantering, even a few short gallops across the open meadow. She took to it like she'd been born in the saddle. Her small body moved in perfect rhythm with the horse. She's a natural, Doc Harrison said during one of his visits. Might have a future as a horsewoman. She's got a future as whatever she wants to be, Jack replied. That's what matters. Lucy, not to be outdone, insisted on learning too. She was still too small for the saddle yet, so Jack let her sit in front of him while he rode, her small hands on the reins pretending to steer. I'm a cowgirl, she shrieked with delight. Look, Mama, I'm a cowgirl. Sarah watched from the porch laughing. Her belly was just beginning to swell with new life. Another miracle neither of them had expected. You sure, Jack had asked when she told him, his voice shaking with hope and fear in equal measure. I'm sure. Sarah took his hands, placed them on her stomach. The doctor confirmed it this morning. But after Grace, after everything I thought so too. But life surprises us, Jack. It breaks us and heals us and surprises us in ways we never expect. Another baby, another chance. Jack had cried that night, harder than he'd cried in 7 years, letting go of grief he didn't know he still carried, making room for joy. One evening in late April, Sarah found him standing by the cottonwood tree. Abigail and Grace's graves were decorated with fresh wildflowers, the first of the season. You still visit them, she said softly. Every week. Jack didn't turn around. I promised I'd never forget. I wouldn't want you to forget. Sarah came to stand beside him. They were part of your life, part of who you are. I don't need you to erase them to love me. I know. He finally looked at her. But I needed to tell them about you, about the girls, about the baby. I needed them to know I'm happy again. Are you happy? Jack thought about the question. He thought about the cabin that no longer felt empty, about the sound of children laughing in rooms that had been silent for years, about Sarah's smile, Emma's determination, Lucy's joy, about the life growing in his wife's womb, a gift he'd never expected. Yeah, he said, I'm happy, happier than I ever thought I'd be again. Sarah slipped her hand into his. Together they looked at the graves, at the names carved into the simple wooden crosses. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly, "for sharing him with us." For a moment, Jack could have sworn he heard Abigail's voice on the wind, warm and laughing the way she'd always laughed. "Take care of him," the voice seemed to say. "He's stubborn, but he's worth it." "I will," Sarah whispered as if she'd heard it too. "I promise." They walked back to the cabin hand in hand. Emma and Lucy were playing in the yard, chasing each other in circles, while the evening sun painted everything gold. Pa, Emma called when she saw them. "Watch what I can do." She turned a cartwheel, landed wobbly but upright. Lucy tried to copy her and tumbled into the grass giggling. "Very impressive," Jack called back. "But don't wear yourselves out. Supper's soon." "5 more minutes," Emma begged. "5 more minutes." Sarah leaned against him as they watched their daughters play. "You know," she said, "I used to dream about this, when Robert was at his worst, when I couldn't see any way out. I'd close my eyes and imagine a place where we were safe, a place where someone loved us, a place where we belonged. And this is it." Her voice was thick with emotion. "This is exactly what I dreamed. Right down to the sunset and the laughter and the man standing beside me." Jack pulled her close. "I never dreamed this. I'd given up on dreaming. But when I found you in that barn, something woke up in me. Something that had been sleeping so long, I thought it was dead." "What was it?" Hopi said simply. "You gave me hope, Sarah. And I don't ever intend to let it go." 6 months later, on a golden September morning, a son was born in the cabin on the Wyoming plain. They named him Daniel Grace Warren, a name that honored both the past and the promise of the future. Emma held her baby brother with careful reverence. "He's so small." "You were that small once," Sarah said, exhausted but radiant. "Was I?" Emma looked skeptical. "I don't remember being that small." "None of us remember," Jack said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "But we all start small. Then we grow." Lucy peered at the baby with intense curiosity. "When can he play with us?" "Not for a while, sweetheart. He's got to learn to walk and talk first. I can teach him." Lucy bounced with excitement. "I can teach him everything." "I'm sure you will." Sarah smiled at her daughters. "You're going to be the best big sisters in the whole world." That night, after the girls were asleep and the baby was settled in the cradle, Jack sat with Sarah by the fire. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up. For walking into my barn on the coldest night of the year. For believing that life could be better." He took her hand. "For giving me a family." Sarah's eyes glistened. "Thank you for letting us in. I know it wasn't easy. I know you were scared. I was terrified. Still am sometimes. But the terror don't matter as much as the love. That's what I learned. Fear fades, love stays. Love stays," Sarah repeated softly. "I like that." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the fire crackle and the wind whisper outside. In the nursery, the baby slept peacefully. In the room beyond, Emma and Lucy dreamed of horses and sunshine and a father who kept his promises. "You know what my mother used to say?" Sarah asked after a while. "What?" "She said that God writes stories with our lives, that every hardship is a chapter, every mountain is a verse, and we don't get to know the ending until we get there." She looked at him. "I used to think my story was a tragedy, a woman who made bad choices and paid for them. But now I think it was something else." "What a love story," Sarah smiled. "A love story that just took a long time to find its hero." Jack's throat tightened. "I ain't a hero. You are to me, to us. You saved us, Jack Warren. Not just from the cold, not just from Caleb. You saved us from despair, from giving up. You showed us that good men exist, that second chances are real, that family isn't about blood, but about choice. You saved me right back," Jack said. "Every single day you saved me." He leaned over and kissed her. Soft and sweet. "I love you, Sarah Warren. I love you too, Jack Warren. Forever." On New Year's Eve, exactly 1 year after he'd found them in the barn, the family gathered in the cabin. Emma reading to Lucy, having learned her letters from Jack. Sarah nursing baby Daniel. Jack carving a toy horse for Lucy's birthday. Peaceful, warm, complete. "A year ago tonight, you found us in the barn," Sarah said from the porch where they'd stepped out together. "Best night of my life. We were dying, and I was already dead. We saved each other." Jack pulled her close against the cold. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you checked the barn 5 minutes later every day? And every day, I thank God I didn't. Emma joined them, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. Pa, can I ask you something? Always? Do you ever miss your old life before us? Jack considered the question carefully. I miss Abigail and Grace. I always will. But Emma, you taught me something important. What that love doesn't replace love. It adds to it. I love Abigail and Grace. And I love you and Lucy and Daniel and your mama. All of it fits in my heart. Emma hugged him. I love you, Pa. I love you too, daughter. They went inside together. The whole family gathered as midnight approached. Jack lifted Lucy. 10 seconds to midnight, they counted together. 10, 9, 8. Baby Daniel gurgled. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Cheers, hugs, kisses. Jack looked around the cabin. Every corner filled with life. Photos on the mantle. Wedding day. Emma on Bella. Baby Daniel. Next to them, an old photo of Abigail and Grace. Not replacement. Continuity. What are you thinking? Sarah asked. That some families are born, some are made, and the best ones are built from broken pieces that somehow fit together. Sarah smiled. We fit together. Yeah, we do. He kissed her as the new year began. Outside, snow fell softly. Inside, warmth held. 4 lives that had been saved became 5. Became a family. Became home. The camera pulls back from the cabin window. Inside, laughter and light. Outside, 2 sets of footprints in the snow. One leading from barn to cabin where Sarah and the girls had arrived 1 year ago. Another leading from cabin to the cottonwood graves Jack's weekly visits. The footprints meet, merge, become one path forward. Some families are born, some are made. The best ones are built from broken pieces that somehow fit together. And every day we choose each other, just like they chose me.